Welcome to the implementation of the Home Language Survey in California Schools webinar.
The goals for today's webinar are to explain the purpose and the use of the Home Language Survey or HLS in California schools. The goal is also to describe the process for the initial identification of English learner or EL students, to present best practices by local educational agencies or LEAs regarding the implementation of the Home Language Survey, and provide information on where to access the California Department of Education, or CDE, sample home language survey, and other resources. We will post in the chat a link to the CDE sample home language survey. There will be opportunities to ask questions during today's session. We will answer as many questions as we can during today's webinar and at the end of the webinar. And know that we will post frequently asked questions on the CDE website regarding today's webinar. Submit your questions in the question and answer or Q&A feature for today's webinar. And another way to submit questions after today's webinar is to email your questions to the Language Policy and Leadership Office email address at lplo@cde.ca.gov. And we will post in the chat the LPLO email address. We will now take a few minutes to see who is in attendance for today's webinar. A poll will appear on your screen. Please complete the poll by identifying what your role or position is at your local level. If the poll does not feature your role or position, please select Other. You should see the poll now. Please select your role or position at your local level for us to see who is in attendance. So far I see there's a significant amount of district administrators or district administrative staff. Welcome, thank you. I see some site administrators or site administrative staff. Excellent. Some teachers, welcome. I see some paraeducators also on with us today. That's great, thank you. I think some folks are finishing selecting on their poll. Excellent. So almost half of the folks today are district administrators or district administrative staff. 20% are site administrators. We have 7% teachers and 1% paraeducators. We welcome everybody who's participating on today's webinar. Thank you for attending. Excellent. As I mentioned earlier, I am Gustavo Gonzalez. I am an education program consultant in the Language Policy and Leadership Office in the Multilingual Support Division at the CDE. Joining us today is Alicia Moreno Ramirez. She's Director of the Multilingual Support Division at the CDE. And also joining us today is Devin Guerra, Senior Program Specialist in the Multilingual Academic Support in the Division of Curriculum and Instructional Services at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. It is wonderful to have them join us today, and I will pass it over to Alicia Moreno Ramirez, who will say a few words about today's webinar and also the California English Learner Roadmap Policy. Alicia?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Gustavo. We are thrilled to see so many folks interested in today's webinar and the variety of roles that we see here in today's space as we aim to level set understanding on the HLS, the Home Language Survey. Today's topic on the HLS and the identification of EL or English learner students in K-12 and the applicability to multilingual learners in transitional K is vital for providing EL language and academic instruction and services, but also for MLL supports. All of this is grounded in California EL roadmap policy. This policy is intended to provide guidance to local educational agencies on welcoming, understanding, and educating the diverse population of English learner and multilingual students attending California public schools. The EL roadmap includes 4 principles that guide instruction for students identified as EL students, but also for the wider representation of multilingual learners. Principle 1, assets-oriented and needs-responsive schools. Principle 2, intellectual quality of instruction and meaningful access. Principle 3, systems conditions that support effectiveness. And Principle 4, alignment and articulation within and across systems. Watch the chat for a link to California ELREM policy. Together, these 4 principles will help California achieve the vision that multilingual learners fully and meaningfully access and participate in a 21st century education from early childhood through grade 12 that results in their attaining high levels of English proficiency, mastery of grade level standards, and opportunities to develop proficiency in multiple languages. Thank you all for being here today to help bring this vision to life. For more information on this policy and resources to support EL Roadmap policy implementation, please visit the EL Roadmap Resource Hub by scanning this QR code or by finding it at www.elroadmap.org. We will put that link to the Resource Hub in the chat as well. Welcome, and back to you, Gustavo.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alicia. So as we continue on with our today's webinar, first, we must distinguish the purposes of the home language survey in the context of transitional kindergarten, or TK, and in the context of kindergarten through grade 12, or K through 12. In TK, and if you notice on the slide on the left column, in TK, the home language survey is used as part of understanding children's multilingual experiences. And in the right-hand column on the slide, in K through 12, the home language survey is used as part of the process to identify EL students. In either case, the home language survey is administered only once upon enrollment. A home language survey completed in TK will follow the student into their kindergarten year. So that's very important to understand that. And when we talk about the initial identification of EL students in K through 12, well, access to a full and meaningful education for English learners begins with proper identification and academic placement. The initial identification of EL students begins when a child is first enrolled in a California school. In accordance with Title V, California Code of Regulations, or 5 CCR, Section 11518.5, at or before the time of a student's initial California enrollment, a local educational agency shall conduct in writing a parent or guardian survey to identify whether the primary or native language or home language of the student is a language other than English. In California, the parent survey is known as the home language survey, or sometimes we refer to it as the HLS. A student identified with a language other than English on the home language survey is eligible to be assessed for an English language proficiency with the initial English language proficiency assessments for California, or the initial LPAC, which is the assessment for language proficiency. If a student demonstrates a level of English proficiency on the initial LPAC that necessitates additional specialized support, and LEA shall classify the student as an EL student, an English learner. If the student demonstrates adequate proficiency in English on the initial LPAC assessment criterion for proficiency, an LEA shall classify the student as initial fluent English proficient, or IFEP. The initial LPAC is administered only once during the student's enrollment in the California public school system. And we will post in the chat a link to the California Code Regulations section 11518.5 text. An LEA should determine whether a student has an individualized education program, or an IEP, that identifies an alternate assessment as the most appropriate for that student. In such instances, the LEA proceeds with administering the initial alternate LPAC. Otherwise, they administer the initial LPAC. An LEA must notify parents or guardians in writing if the student will be administered the initial LPAC or initial alternate LPAC immediately upon determining the results of the home language survey. When a student is classified as EL, or English learner, the LEA is legally obligated to provide them with appropriate EL services to attain proficiency in English within a reasonable amount of time and to have access to grade level content instruction. Talking more about this sample home language survey, California Education Code sections 313 and sections 60810 contain legal requirements that direct schools to determine the language or languages spoken in the home of each student. The sample home language survey form shown on the slide, which developed by the CDE, is designed to assist LEAs with the identification process. The sample home language survey form includes a section for inputting a student's information, such as their name, age, and grade level. The sample home language survey includes a section that explains how the responses to the survey questions will help determine if the student should be tested for English language proficiency. It also explains that a parent or guardian may request a correction to the home language survey before the student is assessed with the initial LPAC or initial alternate LPAC. The sample home language survey form contains 4 survey questions and a space for a parent or guardian's signature and date. We will post in the chat a link to the CDE sample home language survey. The CDE sample home language survey contains 4 questions that parents or guardians will respond to. Question number 1, which language did your child learn when they first began to talk? Question 2, which language does your child most frequently speak at home? Question 3, which language do you, the parents and guardians, most frequently use when speaking with your child? And question 4, which language is most often spoken by adults in the home, which can include parents, guardians, grandparents, or any other adult? These 4 questions derive from the United States Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights, and the Department of Justice approved home language survey questions in their compliance work under Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the Equal Educational Opportunities Act of 1974. When interpreting the responses to the home language survey questions in K through 12, the CDE recommends the following best practices. The column on the left, shown on the slide, outlines the ways parents may respond to the four for the 4 home language survey questions. The column on the right explains the actions that an LEA will take for each response scenario. An arrow shows the action taken by the LEA in agreement with the parent's response. If a parent's response to the home language survey indicates English on all 4 questions of the home language survey, the LEA does not administer the initial LPAC. The student is classified as English only. In another scenario, if a language other than English is indicated on any of the first 3 questions, the LEA must administer the initial LPAC or initial alternate LPAC and test the student for English language proficiency. In another scenario, if English is indicated on the first 3 questions and a language other than English is indicated on the 4th question, the LEA may administer the initial LPAC or initial alternate LPAC and test the student for English language proficiency at their discretion based on receipt of additional information. Further information may be collected by the LEA to help them in making a decision on whether to test or not test the student for English proficiency. Further information that the LEA may collect could include having a follow-up conversation with the parent or guardian regarding the student's interaction with a language other than English. The LEA should take steps to ensure that the student's right to be identified as an English learner student and receive services is not compromised. Guidance regarding the determination of a student's primary language and the home language survey is available in the Determination of Students' Primary Language section in the CDE LPAC Information Guide. A link to this section in the LPAC Information Guide will be placed in the chat. Interpreting parents' home language survey in K through 12 responses activity. We are going to engage in an activity where you will have an opportunity to interpret parent responses to the home language survey questions and determine whether to initially assess a student's English language proficiency. You will be shown 5 different scenarios of parent responses to the home language survey questions. For each scenario, a poll will appear on the screen and you will select from the following choices. One choice would be to assess the student. Another choice would be do not assess the student. And another choice is communicate with the parent or guardian to get more information. So let's get started. Remember, you are going to interpret the parent responses to the home language survey questions to determine whether to assess the student for initial English language proficiency. So on the slide, you see this is scenario 1. Question 1 is, which language did your child learn when they first began to talk? And on the right-hand column, the parent response is English. For question 2, which language does your child most frequently speak at home? And the parent response is English. Question 3, which language do you, the parent or guardian, most frequently use when speaking with your child? And the parent response is English. Question 4, which language is most often spoken by adults in the home, which are parents, guardians, grandparents, or any other adults? And the parent response is English. Should we assess the student, not assess the student, or should we communicate with the parent or guardian to get more information? The poll will appear on your screen. Select your choice. Wonderful, excellent. I believe everyone, okay, we still have a few people that are entering the poll. Okay, let's go ahead and end the poll and see our results. And we have 92% of the folks that said do not assess. And that is correct. If the response to all 4 questions are English, then you do not assess a student for initial English language proficiency. Okay, we're starting off strong. Move on to the next scenario. Scenario number 2. I will read the question and also read the parent responses. Question 1, which language did your child learn when they first began to talk? The parent response is Spanish. Question 2, which language does your child most frequently speak at home? The parent response is Spanish. Question 3, which language do you, the parent guardian, most frequently use when speaking with your child? The parent response is Spanish. And question 4, which language is most often spoken by adults in the home? And the response is Spanish. Should we assess the student, not assess the student, or communicate with the parent or guardian to get more information? A new poll is on your screen. Okay. Uh-oh. I see a lot of folks, 98% are saying assess, have 1% that says do not assess, and 1% that says communicate with parents to get more information. Let's go ahead and end the poll. If you chose assess the student, that is correct. If the response is a language other than English on any of the first 3 questions, then you assess the student for initial English language proficiency. Okay, those were pretty straightforward. Let's move on to scenario number 3. Again, I will read the questions and the parent responses, and then you decide whether we're going to assess, not assess, or get more information. Question 1, which language did your child learn when they first began to talk? The parent response is English. Which language does your child most frequently speak at home? The response is English. Which language do you, the parent and guardian, most frequently use when speaking with your child? The response is English. Question 4, which language is most often spoken by adults in the home? And the response is Spanish. So do we assess the child, not assess, or do we get more information? We have a new poll. Go ahead and enter your response. We have right now almost 70% that said communicate with parents to get more information. We have 25% that said do not assess. We have 6% that say assess. Yeah, this one's a little bit more tricky. Thank you. And the poll. The response to each of these questions, to each of the first 3 questions indicate English only. However, question 4 introduces a language other than English, which was Spanish, as being regularly spoken in the home by the adults. This mixed set of responses may require further clarification. But communicate with the parents or guardians to get, I'm sorry, if the response is English on the first 3 questions and a language other than English on the 4th question, you may administer the initial LPAC at the discretion upon receipt of more information. An LEA may assess the student, and most LEAs do assess the student in these instances. But an LEA may consider communicating with the parent or guardian to gather more information about Spanish being spoken more often by adults in the home before making a final decision. So what I have seen just speaking with LEAs who call me is more than likely an LEA will assess a child because there was a language other than English on question 4. But they can also follow up with a parent just to get more information and be more more informed about how that looks in the home or how that's being implemented at home, and they can always use that information to make the best decision. Okay, that was a tricky one. Let's move on to scenario 4. Which language did your child learn when they first began to talk? Response is Spanish. Which language does your child most frequently speak at home? The response was English and Spanish. Question 3, which language do you, the parents and guardians, most frequently use when speaking with your child? The response is Spanish. And question 4, which language is most often spoken by adults in the home? And the response is Spanish. Should we assess, not assess, or get more information? We'll start a new poll. We have more than 90, almost 95% of folks say to assess. We have 1% that say do not assess, and we have 5 or 6% that say communicate with parents to get more information. Go ahead and end the poll. And if you said to assess a child, that is correct. If the response is a language other than English on any of the first 3 questions, then you assess the student for initial English language proficiency. Even if they put English, Spanish, we have Spanish in question 1, Spanish question 2, and Spanish in question 3, and all of them. So you definitely would assess the child. Okay, last scenario, scenario 5. Which language did your child learn when they first began to talk? The parent response was English. Which language does your child most frequently speak at home? The parent response was English. Which language do you, the parent and guardian, most frequently use when speaking with your child? The response is English and Spanish. And which language is most often spoken by adults in the home? And the response was English and Spanish. Let's go to the polls. Do we assess? Do we not assess? Or do we get more information from the parents before making a decision? I see we have 47% of the folks say that in the poll to assess, 8% do not assess, and 44% say to communicate with parents to get more information. Go ahead and close the poll. So if the response is a language other than English on any of the first 3 questions, then you assess a student for initial English language proficiency. So this may be a circumstance where the LEA may wish to communicate with the parents to clarify that the parents understood the question and were clear on the responses to the question, particularly for determining which language they most frequently use when speaking to their child, with an emphasis on what they believe frequently means to them. But because Spanish is indicated on question 3 and question 4, more than likely the LEA is going to go ahead and assess the student, and they should assess the student, but they could also get some more information from the parent just to make sure that the parent clearly understood those questions and that maybe they can get a clear response to those questions from the parents. But in this case, because Spanish is indicated at least in question 3 and in question 4, the LEA will assess the student. Well, I hope that was informational. Hope that was helpful and with you all, for you all, and I hope it was a little fun. And so as we move on to the next slide, focused on American Sign Language, assessment considerations for students who use American Sign Language or ASL or other sign languages vary depending on the presence of another primary language. For the purposes of LPAC testing and EL services, ASL, American Sign Language, in and of itself is not considered a language other than English, according to the United States Department of Education. Students who use ASL for communication and have not been exposed to any language other than English should not be considered for LPAC testing. For a student who uses ASL for communication because of deafness or hearing impairment, and for whom there is another language than other than indicated on the home language survey, the IEP team should consider LPAC testing with appropriate universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations or alternate assessments. Hearing students of deaf parents. Hearing students of deaf parents who use ASL as the primary means to communicate upon entering school and who have been exposed to a language other than English by another adult, such as a family member or a caregiver, may be considered for LPAC testing. The LEA may consider LPAC testing in addition to other appropriate language assessments to determine whether the student may benefit educationally from English language development instruction. The LEA should base its decision to administer the LPAC on whether the student has been exposed to a language other than English, not on the basis of whether the hearing student of deaf parent uses ASL in their home. Lastly, students who use other sign languages such as German Sign Language, Mexican Sign Language, or French Sign Language as their primary means of communication upon entering school should be considered for LPAC testing. Guidance regarding sign languages is available in the Determination of Students' Primary Language section in the CDE LPAC Information Guide. A link to this section in the LPAC Information Guide will be placed in the chat. Interpreting Parents' Home Language Survey in TK. Let's contrast the use of the Home Language Survey in Transitional Kinder and TK compared to what we've learned about the Home Language Survey in grades K through 12. So Home Language Survey in TK. For students enrolled in TK Transitional Kindergarten, Assembly Bill 2268 was signed into law on June 14th, 2024. And that law amended California Education Code sections 60810 and section 313. Per section 313H, initial enrollment does not include enrollment in a TK program. And pursuant to Education Code section 60810B, state LPAC requirements no longer apply to TK students effective with the 2024-25 school year. This means that TK students cannot be formally identified as English learners until they enroll in kindergarten. LEAs should continue to conduct the home language survey during TK enrollment to identify whether the student has multilingual experiences. And when submitting enrollment records to the California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System, known as CalPADS, and when applicable, LEAs should populate the English Language Acquisition Status field with "to be determined" or TBD. And they should do that if the home language survey indicates a primary language other than English on any of the first three questions of the home language survey. So again, this is in TK enrollment. Using the home language survey will serve as an indicator for district schools and classrooms that a child has has multilingual experiences and may benefit from additional language supports. The CDE recommends that LEAs provide language support to all TK students as appropriate. Once these students enroll in kindergarten, they will be eligible to be tested with the initial LPAC or the initial alternate LPAC. A link to the CDE Transitional Kindergarten Guidance regarding Assembly Bill 2268 letter will be posted in the chat. Regarding a multilingual screener for TK students, beginning in 2027-2028, LEAs will screen TK students whose primary language is not English. The home language survey will be used to identify students who may be eligible for the screening. Education Code Section 48004 requires the CDE to select a list of screeners to screen the English language listening and speaking skills of students enrolled in TK who have a language other than English, and the CDE must make the screeners available to the LEAs free of cost. The screeners will assist LEAs in identifying TK students who would benefit from additional support in English. In the next slides, we will discuss correcting the home language survey and correction of classification errors. Correcting the home language survey. A parent or guardian may make a request to change the home language survey responses only prior to the administration of the initial LPAC if they completed the home language survey incorrectly. The correction of classification errors. If a student has been administered the initial LPAC or initial alternate LPAC, but has not been administered the summative LPAC or summative alternate LPAC, a parent or guardian and district staff may request a correction of classification based on evidence collected. LEAs have the ability to upload corrections to classifications in the CalPads in response to errors based on parents or guardians' responses to the home language survey, or the administration of the LPAC to ineligible students, or additional evidence collected by the LEA to support corrections of classifications, as indicated in Title V, California Code of Regulations, Section 11518.20. The three categories in which a correction process may take place are known as correction process A, correction process B, and correction process C, each of which addresses a particular scenario. In addition to these three categories, the regulations describe the evidence that must be collected in Section D, while Section E provides guidance on the student's English language acquisition status during the correction process. Now let's talk about each correction process. For correction process A, if a student is classified as English only, but the LEA has an indication that the student's primary or home language is not English, and the student is unable to perform ordinary classroom work in English, the LEA may collect and review evidence to determine whether the student shall be administered the initial LPAC or initial alternate LPAC in order to determine the student's original English language acquisition status classification. In order to determine if the student's original English language acquisition status classification is correct, at least 10 calendar days prior to the administration of the initial LPAC or the initial alternate LPAC, the LEA shall notify the student's parent or guardian in writing that the student will be assessed If the test is administered and the student does not meet the criterion for proficiency, the LEA shall classify the student as an EL student or as an English learner. That is correction process A. For correction process B, if an LEA administers the initial LPAC, initial alternate LPAC, summative LPAC, or summative alternate LPAC to a student who is not eligible for the assessment based on evidence collected, the student's classification shall remain unchanged regardless of the assessment results, and the LEA shall not maintain any such results as student records, including in CalPads. The student's parent or guardian or a certificated employee of the LEA may request this correction. Based on the evidence collected and reviewed, the LEA shall determine whether the student's classification should remain unchanged or be changed. And for correction process C, says the following the administration of the initial assessment to a student, but before the administration of the summative assessment to that student, upon request from the student's parent or guardian or a certificated employee of the LEA, an LEA shall collect and review evidence about the student's English language proficiency. Based upon its review of the evidence, the LEA shall determine whether the student's classification should remain unchanged or be changed. We will post in the chat a link to the CD LPAC information guide where you can find information regarding the correction of classification errors. We will move on to home language survey best practices. The best practices for administering the home language survey. The following are some best practices that LEAs should consider when administering the home language survey. One would be to train district and school staff to administer the home language survey, ensuring that they clearly understand the process for identifying potential EL students, that they understand the purpose of the home language survey, and that the home language survey understand the home language survey questions so they can appropriately assist parents and answer questions parents may have in completing the home language survey. Also, LEAs can clearly communicate to parents and those who administer the survey the purpose and use of the home language survey, including what it is, what the survey is, and what the home language survey is not. For example, the home language survey is for determining if a student has a language other than English. The home language survey is not for determining whether a student is designated as an English learner. Or the home language survey is not for determining a student's immigration status or things like that. It is only for determining if a student has a language other than English. So those are some helpful tips for best practices. More best practices. The following are some other best practices for administering the home language survey. One would be to develop a policy for administering the home language survey in writing on a paper version for those LEAs who use a paper version of the home language survey where parents complete. That would include a process for providing parents clarification, conducting follow-up, etc. They could also develop a policy for administering the home language survey digitally for those LEAs who use an electronic process for parents to complete the home language survey. How about to ensure the completed home language survey is available upon request of a parent, school official, or district official, especially if it's an electronic digital home language survey. Developing procedures or protocols like these help ensure that a student's information and the home language survey are sent to another LEA when a student transfers to a different school or a different district. We have shared information regarding the LEA's obligation to identify English learner students, the importance of the home language survey in the identification process, and best practices for administering the home language survey. We are now going to hear from Devin Guerra about some bright spots from Los Angeles County LEAs and the best practices they utilize for implementing the home language survey.
Thank you, Gustavo. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today to shine a light on some of the amazing work happening in Los Angeles County around home language survey implementation. My name is Devin Guerra, and I'm a senior program specialist in the Multilingual Academic Support Unit at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. And I also serve as the Regional English Learner Specialist for Region 11. As we all know, LA County is big. We have 80 LEAs, over 300 charter schools, and we're home to about 20% of the state's 1 million plus English learners. And that means our schools welcome a large number of new multilingual learners every single year. And we know just how critical this process is for setting students and their families up for success from the very start. And while there's incredible work happening all across the county, this afternoon I get the pleasure of sharing a few bright spots, four in particular, that I think will inspire and inform all of us. The first is Los Angeles Unified School District, or LAUSD. LAUSD is California's largest school district and the second largest in the nation, serving over 400,000 students across nearly 800 TK through 12 schools. With more than 168,000 ever English learners, which are students who were at one point classified an English learner, ensuring families understand the enrollment process, including the HLS, is a significant undertaking. LAUSD rises to this challenge by providing accessible, family-friendly resources. These include multilingual videos like the one you see on the screen that explain the purpose and procedures of the HLS, as well as twice annual staff training to ensure enrollment teams are equipped to support and engage families effectively. The district's commitment to multiculturalism and multilingualism is reflected in these efforts, helping families feel welcome and informed. We're going to take a moment to watch a portion of a brief video that highlights how LAUSD ensures families understand the HLS process. So we're going to play the video in 1 sec.
Hi, welcome to the Los Angeles Unified School District. We are a Ready for the World school, and we are so happy to see you. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm here to enroll my child. Her name is Anna. This is her first time in school, and she is so excited to start.
Hi, Anna. My name is Mrs. B. It's so great to meet you. Welcome to our school. I would love to help you with that. I am the English learner designee at this school site, but any trained school personnel can also assist. May I ask what are the languages Anna speaks?
LAUSD values the richness of cultures and languages of students across the district and is dedicated to supporting students in their multilingual journey.
Well, my child speaks a little bit of Korean, but not as much as I would like.
That's fantastic. Anna is multilingual. In order to help in supporting students' potential linguistic needs, as a school, we ask that parents complete a questionnaire called the Home Language Survey, or HLS. That's found under the section called Home Language and Ethnicity Information.
As you can see, the video not only helps families navigate enrollment, but also supports school staff as they guide students through assessment, placement, and the range of multilingual learner programs options that LAUSD offers. So a link to the LAUSD HLS video will be posted in the chat. The next district we're going to highlight today is Linwood Unified. Linwood is a mid-sized TK through 12 district in LA County, serving nearly 12,000 students across 18 schools. English learners make up 26% of the student population, while ELs represent over 50%. So for Linwood students enrolling in first grade through 12th grade in a California or US public school for the first time, the families are referred directly to the district student services office, which is home to their Newcomer Welcome Center. The Newcomer Welcome Center is a welcoming space staffed by EL program specialists who guide families through the enrollment process, including completing the HLS and giving them one-on-one support in doing that, taking appropriate assessments, learning about program placement, reclassification pathways, and available support resources. They also connect families to programs such as dual immersion, and they provide reassurance throughout the process. So this Welcome Center really serves those newcomers enrolling after that TKK year to help welcome them into the district and provide appropriate resources. To ensure a positive enrollment experience for the younger students in TKK, all elementary front office staff in Linwood receive biannual training on enrollment procedures, including the HLFs. Staff are equipped to explain the importance of the HLS, address common questions, and share information about program options. They know they can turn to EL program specialists for additional support should any sort of questions or scenarios come up that they need help answering. So what Linwood does exemplifies a collaborative district-wide approach to ensuring the accurate and supportive completion of the HLS during enrollment. A link to the sample Linwood Unified Enrollment Procedures flow chart will be posted in the chat, and we're so grateful to Linwood for being willing to share that with us. The next district I want to highlight is Glendale Unified. The Glendale Unified is a large TK through 12 district in LA County. They have approximately 25,000 students across 34 schools. English learners comprise over 20% of their student population, with more than 50% classified as ever ELs. So similar to Linwood Unified, and so you see sort of a pattern here, Glendale Unified centralizes enrollment for newcomer ELs through its Newcomer Welcome Center. So families are referred to this Newcomer Welcome Center based on their responses to the home language survey, which is completed during enrollment. So at the Welcome Center, staff then verify HLS information to make sure families have completed it correctly, and they assist families with questions about language testing, available services, and supports. Students also actually take the initial LPAC at the Welcome Center, and while they're testing, families wait there and participate in a comprehensive orientation so that they learn about things such as LPAC, ELD, dual language immersion, translation services, and parent involvement, including participation in DLACs and ELACs, wellness supports, and more. The Welcome Center staff, which includes former Glendale Unified students, offers interpretation in 4 of Glendale's most common languages, which include Korean, Spanish, Armenian, and Russian. To ensure high quality support, the Welcome Center team meets daily with the district's coordinator of equity, access, and family engagement for ongoing training and alignment. So we're going to take a second, watch Glendale's Welcome Center video to see how they support families during the enrollment process. Now, while this video is shown to families after the HLS completion, it highlights how Glendale welcomes families into the district in a way that embraces multiculturalism and ensures families are informed and feel welcomed. In the video, you'll see Mary Martirosian, who's Glendale's coordinator of equity, access, and family engagement. Mary's an amazing educator, and I'm sure she's in the webinar today. So if Mary's in the audience, a big thank you for sharing with us. And now we'll take a look.
Welcome to Glendale Unified School District's Welcome Center. This is the space where our families and students receive support and guidance in order to navigate their academic journey. It is a centralized hub that provides testing as well as one-on-one support for families to help them learn about the resources provided in our community and Glendale Unified School District as a whole. We serve families that speak 68 different languages and are here to give them everything they need in order for them to be successful and happy. Here is our family orientation space. While your child is being tested, you will receive one-on-one personal consultations to help you navigate the community in general. You will learn about the City of Glendale as well as any resources that the Glendale Unified School District offers. We have translations available in Arabic, Armenian, Russian, Korean, and Spanish. At the Welcome Center, our goal is to be a resource for all GUSD families. Whether you're registering your child for school, seeking language support, or needing help navigating our services, we are here to assist you. We're proud to be a place of guidance and a support for families throughout their child's academic journey. One of the key services that we provide at the Welcome Center is LPAC testing. This is when students signify on their home language survey that they speak another language other than English. Families and students come here, and this is where they take that LPAC assessment. We understand that our families come from diverse cultural backgrounds, so we provide a variety of resources in multiple languages, ensuring everyone has the tools to help their children succeed. Whether it's helping a family understand school registration, special education services, or how to access extracurricular programs, we're here to assist every step of the way. Thank you so much for joining us today as we toured our Welcome Center. The Welcome Center is always here to provide our families with support and guidance in order to help them be successful as they navigate their journey at Glendale Unified. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Just call and ask for the Welcome Center. Shnoragado tune. Spasiba. Muchas gracias.
All right, thank you so much to Glendale for sharing that video. A link to the video will be placed in the chat. So one exemplary practice that I want to highlight, consistently implemented by Glendale Unified's Office of Equity, Access, and Family Engagement, is the ongoing examination of systems to identify gaps and develop solutions. So a few years ago, the coordinator of that office noticed a pattern in referrals to the Newcomer Welcome Center. And because Glendale's DLI programs are so robust and high quality, they're highly competitive. And so some families were inaccurately completing the HLS, listing a non-English language in hopes of gaining access to dual language programs, even when that language is not actually spoken at home. So in response, Glendale launched a comprehensive HLS training program for all clerical staff, teacher specialists, and also site principals involved in enrollment at dual language school sites. So these trainings included a detailed review of each HLS question, common scenarios they might encounter, and frequently asked questions, ensuring all staff could clearly communicate the purpose of the HLS and its role within the broader dual language framework. Additionally, staff at the Newcomer Welcome Center received further training to identify and support families who may have made errors on the HLS. Finally, to prevent errors or omissions in English learner enrollment, Glendale's Office of Equity, Access, and Family Engagement works closely with the district's data team to identify and resolve data mismatches. This collaboration helps ensure that multilingual TK students are not missed for initial LPAC testing when kindergarten rolls around, that there aren't duplicate home language surveys complicating the enrollment process, and newly enrolling multilingual learners, especially those who are coming in like as LTELs from other districts, receive appropriate language services and supports without delay. So finally, I want to highlight El Rancho Unified School District, who is also an LA County district that has a 17% English learner population. Like many of our highlighted LEAs, El Rancho prioritizes consistent and thorough training for all their relevant staff. They have HLS protocols and practices in place that are regularly shared with principals, office staff, and school site EL representatives. And these representatives then go on and share this information with teachers as well, so that everybody knows their role in supporting the HLS process. And to ensure consistency and compliance, the district provides HLS training at both the beginning and the end of each school year. These sessions emphasize accurate HLS completion, identification protocols, and timely administration of the LPAC. One important thing that El Rancho does that is a bit unique is that they also emphasize the importance of accurate HLS completion. So they actually require families to complete the HLS in person and do so with the assistance of a school site representative who can help them answer questions, provide clarification, and ensure families understand the purpose. They also make it clear, and I think this is really important, that the HLS is not a placement test. but a tool to determine whether a student may benefit from English language support. By reassuring families that the process is intended to support and not label their child, El Rancho fosters respectful, trusting partnerships. And so to learn more about El Rancho's approach, you can view their home language protocols and practices slide deck, and a link to that is going to be posted in the chat. And so those are some amazing bright spots within LA County around home language survey implementation. I hope you get some good ideas from these. And I really want to just give a huge thank you to my colleagues at LAUSD, Linwood, Glendale, and El Rancho for sharing with us. And now I'll turn it back over to Gustavo to wrap things up.
Wonderful. Thank you, Devin. It's important to probably identify our EL students so that LEAs can meet their legal obligations to provide our EL students with appropriate language assistance services so they can attain proficiency in English and participate in the standard instructional program. So part of this obligation for LEAs is to provide all EL students with both integrated and designated English language development instruction, and to provide all EL students with access to standard-based content. LEAs must provide appropriate special education services to EL students with disabilities who are found to be eligible for special education and related services. And EL students are entitled to EL programs with sufficient resources to ensure the programs are effectively implemented. That includes highly qualified teachers, support staff, and appropriate instructional materials. And most importantly, LEAs must ensure that their EL programs are effectively meeting their set goals and desired outcomes for their EL students. And these obligations are referenced in Chapter 20, United States Code, Section 1703F, in Section 6825. Also in California Education Codes, Sections 305, 306, 310, Section 56301, and 60811.8, and in California Code of Regulations, Sections 11300, 11302, 11309, and also with the Castañeda versus Picard case law. This slide here shows resources from the California Department of Education, which include a sample home language survey. It includes the CD website, where you can type in the search box home language survey or HLS and to be able to access a home language survey. Also to the English Learner Forms webpage. You'll have a link there to the Multilingual Learners webpage, the LPAC webpage, and the CDE Survey Assessment Programs and Reclassifications webpage. And those links will be put in the chat. I know we are 4 minutes over. I apologize for going over. Just wanted to let you know any questions you may have, please send them to our email at lplo@cde.ca.gov. You can also call us at 916-319-0845. We just came to an end to our webinar. I would like to thank Alicia Moreno Ramirez for her leadership and for presenting today. I would like to give a big thank you to Devin Guerra for sharing LEA's insights on the home language survey implementation. I'd like to give a big thank you to Los Angeles Unified, Linwood Unified, Glendale Unified, and El Rancho Unified School Districts for sharing best practices and resources on the home language survey and the identification process, and also for their commitment to their EL students and parents. I want to thank you all for joining us today on today's webinar. And this concludes today's webinar. Hopefully we get to see you all soon. Thank you.